Hi guys. Good morning everybody, and just exhale with me if you want to. So I really do appreciate you being here today. I know you're giving up one of your richest assets at the moment, which is time, and I really am humbled that you're here to hear what I have to say about End. Can everybody hear me? Mel, you were too quiet, so can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. I don't know, if I press this, would it go to mine? What was my first one? Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you about today, Mel briefly mentioned. I think I'm fine. Oh, I want to go back. Shh, don't look. Okay, cool. So just look at my face while I talk. So what I wanted to talk to you about today, Mel mentioned briefly. So I have known Melon since last year. I moved back in March 2018, and Cardiff is home city, but when I moved back last year, I had a very different opinion of the city than I do now, 16, 18 months later. So when I first came back last year, I basically tweeted, actually, shamefully, does anybody want to be my friend? I remember being like, I don't really think I'm in the right scene in where I left, and I wanted some new people. And loads of people put me in touch with Creative Mornings, and I didn't actually call myself creative at the time, so I found that quite intimidating. But I went to a Creative Mornings, and I've basically been a loyal morning person ever since. And I find Creative Mornings for me has given me tremendous courage and connection, and it's basically told me that I'm not alone in this creative endeavor that we're all on together. So at the moment, I'm asked quite a lot with the success of Ripple, and as it becomes more viable and visible in its success and its growth, people are asking me all the time what seems like a very simple question, but it's just, who is Sophie? Who are you? Tell us a bit about yourselves. And I'm kind of bored of it because there is so many labels that can go in that. For you, as societal, it's very easy to just find a label, find a box, and I'll give you some of them. I'm white, visibly. I'm 30, which means I actually fit into the good or bad sign of a millennial, depending on which day in the news it is. I am heterosexual. I've been in a 11-year monogamous relationship. I am cisgender female, and I am Welsh, born in Cardiff, and all these lovely labels might help you have an opinion of me. I could tell you, if we were to move on to the next question I'm always asked, how did you get here? I could tell you about my childhood. Happy, adventurous. I remember a lot of Viennetta from Nan's Deep Freeze. I then traveled a lot in Europe, and when I moved around Europe, more gelato, and then I came back, I studied, and I could tell you about my years in journalism and how I learned to write. I could tell you about when I thought then that money was the biggest thing I thought would have impact, so I went into corporate, and I cried most days in the toilet. I could then tell you how I left corporate, and I found a job further away from home, but I thought would give me more creativity. I could tell you about my likes, actually. That might help. So, wild swimming, campfires, eating, talking, cooking, David Attenborough. I could talk to you about my dislikes. That will definitely help you. White chocolate. There's just no point. Snakes. They move way too fast. Probably drum and bass music. The patriarchy. I could go on about many dislikes. I could also tell you, to give you a bit more of an example, about who I am on a deeper level, that I never feel more alive than when I look up and see a clear starry night. Ever. And I never feel more alone than when I'm actually in a room full of strangers. So just bear that in mind today. What I'm asked more often than not, though, is how did you get here? And how did you become who you are to make Ripple happen? And the truth, when you take all those labels away, the real root of it is I'm just a human who right now is struggling and trying to navigate a very unstable world. Sorry, it catches me by surprise every time. Because it does feel unstable, doesn't it? It feels heavy sometimes. And when I talked to a few people about the idea of end, what they wanted me to talk about was, or what they thought I would talk about was, shit, that's heavy, like end of the world kind of stuff. And eco-anxiety is a real thing, and I feel it, I know the team feel it, and actually it's not what I want to talk to you about today, because I don't want you to feel heavy. I wanted you to feel empowered and inspired by maybe my story and what I had to say. So the only thing I will say about that, and how the world is going, is there are two options. I believe that you look and you watch the illness deteriorate, or you advocate for the recovery. I've chosen to advocate for recovery, and I've chosen to lead the path of recovery to watch our planet recover. So I think that's all I'll say on that today. But what I did want to talk to you about today, is the end of tradition. This is where I can now move on. So tradition, for me, is the obstacle to progression. It's the actually only obstacle to our progression as humanity as a whole, and as what I think our planet needs to progress as well. We desperately need the progression, but tradition is our obstacle. And tradition is sly and it is cunning, and you're looking at it every day, and I don't think we understand what tradition means, because we think we live now in a very cultural, very liberal world. But tradition is sly and sneaky. Tradition for me is the withered, furied brow of an OAP who tuts when she sees a same-sex couple holding hands in the street. Tradition is the fact that the highest killer of men in the UK is still suicide for men under 45. Tradition looks like, to me, a £30,355 average spend that a wedding now costs in the UK. And then we're made to sit through. And the speeches, yeah. And the passive-aggressive, father of the bride speech. We're made to sit through that for 30,000. I'd be pissed too if I'd spent £3,000 on a dress and it never saw the light of day again. But the other thing that you notice is that tradition, which we're all told in the headlines, tradition is the fact that of all FTSE 100 companies in the UK, 6 women are CEOs. And those 6 women, as of last year, were paid half their male counterparts. The male counterparts are likely to be white and called Dave. And that is actually factually proven. There are more Daves in the CEO than women in the UK. And when you know something like that, you think to yourself, or I started thinking to myself, and I encourage you to ask maybe that same question, whose profit and whose pocket am I filling? Because that society that is keeping those 6 women paid half their rate, even though they're still in their millions, they're half what their male counterparts are, who's decided that? So this is my end for what I want to talk to you about today, the end of tradition and how tradition is stopping us from progressing. I've really tried to figure out who said this. We've gone through a few Reddit memes and everything, but it's just the most perfect example of what tradition is. Tradition is just peer pressure from the dead. And I'm so done with it. I'm so done with it. When asked to talk about end this month, I remember sitting and thinking long and hard about what ends I've had to go through in my life. Now, most people think of end, and the first thing that comes to mind is quite negative connotations, isn't it? It's fear, tears, sadness, grief, even death. And all of those stages actually have to happen for an ending to happen. You have to let go. There will be grief, there will be tears. But the more I've sat with it over the last month, when Mel said this is what my theme would be, the more I've realized that endings have terrific opportunity for growth, expansion, and personal development. And it's personal development that we all need to be tapping into now so we can personally develop as a collective. So I came up with a game quite late last night. It's called Bullshit. So it's pretty simple. There's very little rules. I'm going to put a very traditional narrative, profitable narrative, that is currently being rechurned and not let go in our society. And if you agree with it, you can just sit quietly. Think about it, but you can just sit quietly. If you disagree and you'd like to call bullshit in as much passion as you feel the need, then feel free to, just so I know if we're on the same page before I carry on with my next rant. So, men who cry are weak. Excellent. Strong leaders don't show vulnerability. Yeah, this is good. We don't need to worry about the planet. There's enough resources for everyone, forever. Great. This game is good. It's good. It's good. So it's arrogant to show pride in your work and talk about your successes. Oh, that was a bit quieter. Anybody else want to crack on? Oh my God. This one's more for me, because when I moved back March last year, I actually had this deep underlying traditional thought in my head. It's okay, you don't have to call bullshit on this, because I know most of you can do this. But I call bullshit on the fact that most people think that all creative people can paint. Oh, feel free. Draw. Write poetry. Sing. Please shut up, you can. There's more. Play an instrument. No, it's quite not. There's not many of you. Can't do a fucking thing! Mel had to do these slides at midnight last night. I can't use Photoshop for shit. There's more. And I'm going to bring this in because one of my dearest friends is sat there and she can turn anything into something. And I proudly wear that rope necklace, but that shit is hard. And I cannot figure out how creatively somebody just sees something and thinks I can make something out of that. So I call out, if you don't follow all of that, you're still creative, and you can still call yourself creative, because what I've realized over the last 18 months, especially as I set up Ripple, is I don't sell anything. I don't make anything that we sell in Ripple. Nothing is made by my hand. But the community and the vibe and the energy and the impact I created. So just have a little think about next time when you think I'm not creative, what actually skills you bring to the table. It doesn't mean that you can be at a maker's market and you can sell something. And I just had to call bullshit on that very old tradition that I think we all think. So one of the things I wanted to hone in on today is the business narratives. As an entrepreneur, I didn't go for the title of ethical entrepreneur. I certainly didn't aim for it. I didn't aspire to it. The only thing I aspired to do was to be something which I couldn't see that the world really needed. And I needed more examples of women, primarily, leading consciously, with heart-led empathy, ambition, courage, and vulnerability. And I needed them to be doing that and thinking about planet and people at the same time. And I just couldn't see it. And I couldn't see it. If I could, it wasn't enough. And so that's actually the label I want to give myself. That's what I've decided to be. Now, trying to be that in a very traditional business model is hard. Because when you don't see it reflected back at you, you're not engaged enough to want to keep going. Being knocked down continuously is difficult. It really edges away at you. But one of the things I've decided that I wanted to stick to were a few of these, and I'd like to lead you through them. Because if you're sitting on that path where you're thinking, either you're in a corporate job, I doubt many of you are, but when you talk to other people who, and I'm sure you've had conversations with friends, they live for the weekend, they get that Sunday night feeling. I don't get Sunday night feeling ever. I never have to worry about going into work. It's literally the only driving motivator. When you start feeling like that, change. That's my only advice to you all. Next, right. God, I've had some terrible business advice in the last 18 months. All of it traditional, all of it from white middle-aged men. One of them said, when I said I didn't want any managers in the shop, that lack of hierarchy would cause absolute anarchy. Like, imagine just Jumanji or something, that we'd all just be like rabid, just like going through the shop, just like pulling grains off the wall. It would just be carnage. Bullshit. Lack of hierarchy does not mean anarchy. And I say that with, how many of you are here? 4 of you are here today. So we're a team of 8, and 4 of them are sat there. We have no managers in the store. I've not hired anybody that can't self-manage. If you are, ask yourself why you're doing that. I don't micromanage, I don't macromanage. There is nobody, they're not even allowed to call me boss. Like, I don't want anybody to not have complete autonomy of the time they spend in the shop. And the truth is, when you give somebody that autonomy, they then level up. They want to do more for your business. They want to help you thrive, because every day they're coming into a work environment that they know they have control over and they feel that they're part of. There's nothing worse them feeling disempowered. And I see no gain whatsoever in being ruthless as a boss or a leader. None whatsoever. Oh, God. Have a thorough business plan and stick to it. I don't know if anybody knows anybody in Business Wales here, and I've got nothing against Business Wales, but the first point of call when you meet Business Wales is they'll be like, can we see your business plan? Now, this is school failing as well, but I didn't even know what a business plan was. I certainly didn't know how to write one, and I didn't really know what then having one would let me do. What I realized is I've been journaling a business plan for about the last 6 months before I decided to do Ripple. Because a business plan at heart is your moral compass, the intention that you want to put into your business, and how you want that intention to then have impact on other people. That's really what Business Wales should be telling people. What impact do you want this business to have on other people? And is it for the greater good? Is it for the great, every time, I can't say those two words together without sorry. Is it for the greater good, or, or is it for your own benefit? Because businesses that are already merging in 2019, consumers are smart enough now that you can call out when you know it's not for the greater good. Can you not? Can you, when a business starts or something on Instagram comes up, you're just like, I know that's not for the rest of us. That's just solely your passion project or your hobby, and I'm not sure it's for everybody else. I didn't have a business plan. Ask them. I still don't. It makes me quite difficult to understand how any kind of projection. I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't know what Ripple will be in 5 years. The truth is, if Ripple's still here in 5 years, something's gone drastically wrong, because it means that the message has not spread enough. Ripple is not meant to be a long-lasting business. And I'm okay with that. I'm really happy to let it go when the time comes when enough people are on board with it. So don't get too bogged down with business plans. And if you do have one, stay flexible enough that you do not have to stick to it. People in Business Wales are literally shuddering, being like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I could talk for days on this. The customer is always right. Most of you are customers of mine. Hi. Give them what they want. Truth is, in a world where we're still listening to what Dave in the boardroom has made us think we want, need, drive, eat, like, and dislike, do you actually know what you want? Really? Or do you just think, I'll do what's trendy at the moment? I'll buy into what everybody else is doing. So when you come and you bring something to the market that is quite different, like Ripple is, we actually have to stand our ground. We actually have to say, when somebody comes in and says, I really need you to stock this, because that's what's convenient for their life at the moment, do I? Or do I have to stand up and just say, actually, that's not a very good product in the first place, so I won't stock it, and it'd be great if you could learn to live without it. That goes down real well. But the customer is not always right, not in this day and age. You don't have to lose integrity over it. You don't have to be talked down to. And there's a sense of business now where if you're buying from me and you're supporting my independent business and the people that it's supporting, you understand that I'm also going to stand up for the values that originally were in that journal, that were in that business plan. And it doesn't mean I cater to your will. Not when I'm trying to change a lifelong habit of so many people in our community. So just bear that in mind when you think about when you get feedback. Feedback is wonderful. Constructive feedback is fantastic. We're in a world of social media. Trolls can slide into our DMs at any time. And when you just get chipped away at, you start to just lose that intention a little bit. And every time I think, God, just put that in the shop, Soph. Loads of people want it. I have to ask myself, is that actually good for them? Is it good for people? Is it good for planet? It's always what I come back to. Don't make friends. How do you even try not to? But in business, I was once told by another white middle-aged man, don't get too attached, don't make friends, don't invest in part-time staff. They won't put the effort in, full-time or nothing at all. And then when you get them, keep your boundaries. Bullshit. It is the worst piece of business advice I've ever been given at all. Invest in people and they'll invest in you right back. I nurture the team and I am nurtured in return. There is nothing that I think, the biggest bit of advice I'm ever given, the biggest bit of feedback I'm ever given, which warms my heart, is that Ripple is the vibe, the energy, just the feeling in the shop is palpable. That happens because every single day I'm basically working with really good friends. It doesn't happen because there's hierarchy, and it certainly doesn't happen because we've all been taught to just keep really good boundaries. It's the worst thing I've ever been told. Invest in people. And I can say that for many of you. I know you all have teams here. Invest in the people that are investing in your business, no matter how long you think they're going to be there for. Part-timers, they won't stay forever. I'll want their friendship once they're gone. So just bear in mind, be open to making friends, basically. Your idea has to be completely original. Nothing is original. There is literally nothing original left to do. Most of it is rechurned, and it's finding a new way to bring it into a modern audience. How many times has somebody come into the shop and said to us, my nan used to shop like this? Yeah, I know. War rations, having sacks and just being able to put your bag into a grain. Like, food standards would chop me down. I can't do that anymore. But what I've created is something for then our modern audience, and given it to them in a very accessible way that means they can make small changes for huge growth. Now, when there's an idea that people think, oh, it's not unique, it's not original enough, nobody can do it like you can. There are other zero-waste shops in the UK. In fact, we're verging on to 400 at the moment, and I'm part of a group where I see them emerge every day. There's ones in Whitchurch, there's ones in Barry, there's some coming up in Newport. I know about other ones that are coming to the city. It doesn't freak me out. Nothing is original, but the worst thing I think most people stick to, and this is an old tradition, you know the whole imitation is the highest form of flattery? Bullshit. Inspiration is the highest form of flattery. You can be inspired by me to take an idea that I've already rechurned from somebody else, and you can put your own twist on it. But imitation is not flattery. It's lazy. So, yeah, this doesn't happen a lot. I don't know what I'm doing. Pretty much, most days. I actually don't really know what I'm doing. They can vouch for that, actually. But what does happen is people think that you have to put that look on, that you do know what you're doing, that that's professional, that actually coming in and breaking down in a meeting or having a really terrible day, you just leave it behind before you come into work. We've got a crying stool in the stockroom. It gets used often. And the reason it gets used often is because there's never a line between how you have to feel when you're at home between when you come into the shop. The worst thing that I can think of is that somebody else come in and thought that everything was plain sailing. And then a week later, we put an Instagram post out that something is terrible. I hate that feeling that they wouldn't understand what was coming. You have to know that business is hard, and I'm pretty sure that I'm being honest enough and authentic enough through the channels that I display everything, that I tell you that this is not easy. And I don't think you're meant to live in that place where somebody else can't aspire to be like you, because actually what you are isn't truthful anyway. I don't want somebody to think they can have a business and it's plain sailing. I don't want somebody to think that 7 months in, I can step back and I just let the team run the show. That's not how it works either. I'm busting my gut more now than I did before I opened the shop. You don't have to look like you have it all together any of the time. There's truth and there is truth in this. I won't make it on my own, and I'm not making it on my own. I have a terrific team around me now who are nurturing me, lifting me higher. But there are certain things I did last year that I really want to call out the pride that said I did this on my own. One of those things was deciding to do it in the first place. I had to sit with the idea, am I strong enough? Is this needed enough? What do I want out of it? Then I went to a business meeting. I had to do that on my own. Nobody came with me. I had to pitch. That didn't work very well. Anybody remember the Kickstarter? Yeah. I did that on my own. Didn't know what I was doing, back to the other thing, but I still did that on my own. I single-handedly campaigned for 33,000 in 13 days. There are certain things that I'm really happy to say I did on my own. Now, I didn't do it on my own in terms of collectively, because of course the community had to pledge so that I could do it. But you still all had to trust me that I would then take that commitment and put Ripple into practice. I did that on my own. Some things you can do on your own, and you can do difficult things. If you're waiting for a team to find you, or a creative collective, or you're waiting for somebody to be your business partner, why? How much of this can you actually do on your own before the rest of your tribe will actually gravitate towards you anyway? So it's just something to bear in mind. When you first start off, you don't need to be doing it as a group. You don't need to be doing it as a collective. Build a product, then find the market. Bullshit. We say quite often in the shop, and there's truth in this, build it and they will come. But what you have to build has to have tremendous value before they come. If you're finding something and you're making something out of a hobby, and it's very egocentric and it's your idea, and then you'll be like, then I'll find the market that like this, you're starting off on the wrong foot. You have to have a product that you already know has value and that the market is waiting for you to create. Don't just create something at home and then be like, this is going to make me money. Everybody will want this. And now I just need to go out and find those people. It's not how it works. Ripple, the market was already there. The people were desperate to find some tiny way to make collective change. They felt so terrible about the state of the world, but they didn't know how to make a small change. Who knew that sometimes buying a bamboo toothbrush would be enough to make somebody feel better about their week? I didn't create a product, I just knew the market. Then I had to go and find the product. I didn't know what a gravity bin was. If anybody thinks I'm like eco-savvy, I didn't know what a gravity container was. I didn't know what a PDQ machine stood for. I still don't know what it means, but anybody know what it means? It's just a card machine. I still don't know what a PDQ machine is, but they tell me every time, do you PDQ reports? I'm like, cool. So, be fearless. I do loads of stuff out of fear. You really need fear. It's primal. We're hardwired to be in that state of, if we weren't feared, we'd be like, hey, saber-toothed tiger, you're really cute. Can I pet you? That's not really how it works in terms of how we navigate life. Fear keeps us alive. It's the first thing that kicks in when you're like, I don't really know what the outcome of this will be. I do most things still fear. I feel the fear and you do it anyway. You shouldn't be fearless in your business. If you're not fearful at all, you're too arrogant with your own idea. You should feel fear. Feel fear, talk it out, do it anyway. It's not that fear needs to stop you, but if you don't feel any fear at all, you're not emotionally attached enough to the idea of what you're putting out into the world. God, there's so much I'm going to know about this. Everybody, and some of the worst advice I think entrepreneurs are given at the moment is follow your passion. Just find your passion. Just go to India, meditate, whatever, find your passion and come back and then you'll know. And that passion will then make you millions. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, I don't know if anybody knows the name, she has a fantastic TED Talk, and she talks about the idea, the misconception, that if you follow your passion, there's too much at stake. If Ripple was a passion, there would have been too much at stake, and fear would have kicked in, and I wouldn't have gone forward. She talks about the idea of, instead of following a passion, follow a curiosity. Each day, I was curious enough to say, I wonder if other people like this like I do. I wonder if anybody else would give me money. I wonder if I should start a Kickstarter. The idea of following a passion means that if it fails, everything comes tumbling down. It's sometimes the stakes are too high to just follow passion. And passion is wavering. Relationships end, don't they? Like, it's not like you can commit yourself to the one thing forever. So passion wavers. Curiosity always stays with you. You can literally be curious about something tonight, try it. If it doesn't work, you can be like, didn't lose my life over that. Curiosity literally then finds you your passion in the end. But following passion is it's so overwhelming, because if you don't find the passion, are you failing? How do you then, if you don't know that somebody else, and then you speak to other people and they're like, oh, you really look like you're doing your passion. Shit, I'm not. What does that mean? Am I not doing then what every other creative is meant to be doing? Don't think you always need to be following passion. Also, I'm not passionate about getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to take deliveries. I'm not passionate about Jesus Christ, I'm not passionate about maths, and I still have to now do tax returns and VAT returns. I'm not passionate about feeling so anxious when somebody comes in and says something they don't like about the shop. I'm not passionate about the idea that I had an anxiety attack on the floor of the shop at 6 o'clock this morning, still worrying about what to say to you today. None of that is passionate. I don't need to be passionate about those things. I just need to be curious enough to know, and to know that all will be well. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know it will. Let's go back to the anxiety attack on the floor this morning. Get a little more comfortable being uncomfortable. Whether we're talking about plastic pollution, the rise in renters markets, whatever you want to talk about, that is whatever you want to basically stand on your soapbox for, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. And if you want to make change, you're going to have to start having uncomfortable conversations. No good comes from having really comfortable conversations when everyone's like, isn't this great? Isn't this great? If you're comfortable about asking yourself the things you should be changing, you're not asking enough of yourself. I'll repeat that for you because I don't think it sinks in. If you're comfortable enough, sitting and being like, I can make that change. I'm super comfortable with that. You're not asking enough of yourself. Because comfort won't give us the progress we need. Comfort is tradition. We stay small, we stay comfortable. God, don't break the status quo, don't throw the rule book out, don't rock the boat. Just stay safe and comfortable. Uncomfort will literally give us leaps and bounds towards progress. Guys, if I could tattoo anything on my face, I would do this. When you know better, you do better. I'm going to give this to you as a life raft, that whatever you're feeling right now about the things that you want to end and the things that you think you might not be doing enough of, be kind on yourself. You only do better when you know better. If I could have told myself repeatedly this last March when I came home, well, I'm quite glad I didn't actually, because I guess I wouldn't be here. But when you do know better, and you then start doing it, other people follow. But before you know better, take yourself out of that. You're not a hostage. You can give yourself an easy ride sometimes. You can say, I didn't know better. But by God, when you know better, and you're not doing better, that's when you need to start asking yourself the questions. And that's when suddenly, like, entrepreneurs like us, and like these businesses that are creeping up and sustainability, they come from having really difficult conversations. It's not easy to suddenly stand up and say, this is all a bit shit, isn't it? Anybody else feel like this is a bit shit? Good. I want to do something about it. It's probably going to be a bit difficult, isn't it? Yeah, I can tell you, it's going to be a bit difficult. Buckle down. It probably is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But if you're doing something together with a collective, when it gets worse, it doesn't feel half as bad. And I urge you to pass that on, that feeling of, it's okay, you didn't know. Tradition makes you not know. It keeps you silent. But once you know, you then need to pass that on, and you need to goddamn do something. I think that's it.